Hi guys and welcome. Today I'm just working on sketching out a new design, a character. I haven't really sketched in a while now, where I just wanted to explore an idea and see where it took me and just enjoy the process of creating an idea and a concept. So that's what I did today. I let myself get back into the rhythm of just creating. So before I even started working on this sketch that I'm showing you now, I actually pulled out this giant sketchbook that I have, and I just did a bunch of pencil traditional sketches, just really loose to get warmed up and get the flow of things and get a bit more rhythm to the lines that I was creating. It's interesting. There's things like this where I decide that I want to do it, and then once I do it, I realize I should be doing it all the time, every day. It's the kind of thing that just was so helpful and beneficial, but it just gets pushed to the side. I forget about it, or I'm really antsy to just start working on the actual official thing that I'm supposed to be drawing that day. So then I skip it, and then suddenly it's been months since I've done just some regular old warm-up sketches. So that was a good reminder that it really doesn't even take that long, but it makes a huge difference. I noticed that I felt a lot more limber in my fingers, so that I didn't feel nearly as stiff. And when I tried to do longer, more graceful lines and try to achieve certain curvatures to them, they actually happened, rather than I normally would have to redraw them multiple times to try to get even any sort of curvature to them, because I was just stiff. Because it would be at least a day since I had drawn last, and in that time, usually they're much stiffer to begin with because they have an end goal to them. They're supposed to be for a specific piece, and I already have everything kind of checked off and figured out. So this was a lot more liberating in a lot of ways. So I guess that's the first thing that I would highly suggest if you don't do this. And of course, this is advice for myself first and foremost, but if you don't do warm-ups, try doing it, and then moving into the piece that you want to work on, or the final thing, or the final sketch, or whatever the case is. It just did so much for me, even though it was mostly, at this time at least, just to get limbered up and get ready for the physical act of drawing. It was really helpful too, because I was using figure drawing references to do my warm-ups. So I was allowing myself to just take off the pressure of it needing to be accurate or right or looking good, and just let myself use it as a warm-up, but it was still very educational and helpful. So I found that I was enjoying it a lot more, because I wasn't stressing out about it as much, but I was still learning, I was still growing, I was still getting more acquainted with anatomy and how I want to draw it, and how I want to build up the line work, and how I want to build up the shape language. And it was just a very, very beneficial practice to have on so many different levels. So I plan on hopefully doing this every day moving forward. Again, that's one of those things that just, it only takes a couple times where I skip it or I forget it, and suddenly that habit is gone. But I'm going to try my best to make sure that this is a daily habit of mine, just to do some warm-up sketches, specifically around the figure I would like, I think, because that's something that has a lot of movement to it and motion, and it's something that I could absolutely get better at. So for this sketch, I actually gave myself some certain parameters that seem really counter to what I normally tell myself and what I normally recommend for creating artwork, for sketching, for final stuff. I actually gave myself the requirement to just sit down and draw without reference, or at least without a main reference for this pose. I've known this is how I think and I work for a really long time, and I'm trying to get out of it, but I've gotten to the point where I love reference. It has brought me so much further than I would ever gotten without it. But I'm at the point now where I'm afraid to even pick up a pencil and work if I don't have an exact reference in front of me. I'm afraid that I'm going to completely mess up the pose. It's going to look terrible, and then I'm going to feel embarrassed that I even created something like that. And I'm trying really hard to get over that fear. I'm trying to get back to the point where I can accept that what I may be drawing without reference doesn't have perfect anatomy, but it doesn't need to, because that's not the purpose of it. I really want to get out of this kind of drawing idea generation. I want to get inspired from the stuff that I'm drawing. I want to put marks down that eventually become something that I think is interesting, something that I would want to continue with, and eventually find more accurate references if I need them. So it does have a very specific purpose in the way that I've limited myself for a long time now, and this honestly felt really refreshing. I felt really scared at first because there were certain struggles that I was kind of fighting with right at the very beginning with the anatomy, where she was just looking a little wonky, and there are certain things that just weren't fitting together like a nice perfect puzzle. But the more I worked on it, the closer things got, the better things became. And the more I was able to realize that a lot of that information is in my brain. I have looked at figures a lot, but a lot of that's still there. I just need to give myself a little bit of time to work through the piece. And of course, depending on the person and the skill level, that's going to come faster than others. And sometimes it's just not going to be in your brain, and you need to look at external references to see how that is. But there are a lot of things that working on this that I thought that I didn't know, but I realized I knew it a little bit better than at least nothing. So at the very beginning, I was very scared, very nervous, but I got more and more into it. I was enjoying it more. I was getting really excited about who this character is and what I wanted to portray with her and what her personality might be and what kind of mood that she would be in for this piece and what her background story is. So it just felt really amazing to be able to reconnect with that joy of drawing again. But while I did jump into this without strict reference, I did give myself an idea on what the character was, what was happening to her, and a general kind of a pose. I've definitely found that when I try to sketch or I try to, say, look up reference for something without an idea, it ends up very, very wrong. It turns into basically nothing that I'm interested in or anything that I'm interested in continuing with. So when I have an idea, even if it's not totally fleshed out or it's something that at first glance I think is a little bit too basic or uninteresting, having something to build off of is really the key to me being able to have any sort of successful sketch. So for this one, I wanted to create a ghost character. Her pose is going to be kind of this floating, sitting kind of a pose. And I wanted a sword going through her as kind of the way that she died and became a ghost. So there are those few very specific details that I could build up on as I was sketching on this, so I could work out what kind of dress she was wearing, how would it drape out, what was her exact expression, what was the style of sword. There's all of these other details that as I'm figuring it out and looking up reference, because I was looking up little pieces of reference for ideas as I was working on that. And as I did that, the story became more and more fleshed out of who she was and a little bit more of her story. So yes, having a little bit of a jumping off point is something that I absolutely need. And I think that's just really good to be able to understand how you personally, the psychology behind how you create your artwork and knowing what you need and what things specifically are detriments to your work and your process. And it's a lot to figure out, but I'm starting to get a better understanding of certain things that I have to work on right now, certain things I have to address, things that I have to give myself and things that I have to take away. And every time that I pick up my pencil and work on something like this, on a sketch like this, I feel like I'm understanding myself better, how I want to draw, and that process that I want to have. But I do think I always benefit from stepping away from a sketch at some point and then coming back to it. I don't always have something specifically that I'm looking for that I need to fix, but sometimes I do. With this piece in specific, I knew that I wanted her hair to flow a different way. It wasn't quite working with the composition that I wanted and the flow with the rest of the character, so I knew that needed fixed. I also did know that the position of her foot wasn't right for how we would be looking at it. So that was another thing that I knew I needed to fix and address. And I find that when I give myself a little break from a sketch after I've been sitting down and working on it for a really long time, is I can actually see it with fresh eyes. I can fix those mistakes. I can see how to make the hair flow in a way that works better. And I can also see mistakes that I didn't realize while I was working on it because I was so focused on a different issue. So yes, I highly recommend taking little breaks from your work and stepping away from them and then coming back and seeing what you can pick out to enhance it. And that is it for today. I would love to hear from you guys. What are some of the steps that you take to have a successful sketching session or things that you're trying to work on? I would love to hear that so we can figure things out together and go through this learning process of how to make our sketches better. But anyways, that is it for this week. I'll be back next week with another art video. But if you'd like to see any content in the meantime, I do post almost daily over on Instagram. I also have my Patreon, which is a great way to help support the artwork that I do, and you get exclusive content there as well. There's a link for both of those down in the description. There's also a link for my art shop down there. And yeah, that is it for today. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.